Welcome to our lecture on Introduction to Programming in Python. So due to an internet connection issue, I cannot connect it to my Azure notebook. So I will be running this notebook from a local interface, which basically using the same thing as Azure. As you can see here, this is the Azure window, and this is what I will be using to showcase the notebook. And you can see the command line bar are exactly the same as what we have on Azure. So bear with me. So what is Python? We briefly talk about Python, but basically what you want to keep in mind is it is an interpreted language, meaning that the role of the assembler is less prominent and more streamlined, intuitive than other high-level programming language. You have two ways of using a Python notebook, either interactively, basically where you can use it as a very sophisticated calculator that can do very complex command, and you execute one command at a time, or in the scripting mode, basically you execute a series of commands saved in a text file, usually with the .py extension. In this lecture, we'll be focused on the interactive mode of Python, performed through the context of Jupyter Notebook, or we can call them short as Notebook. So the interfaces we see here represent the Jupyter Lab, and this section from O1, this tab, represents the notebook. On the top, you have a number of commands of buttons that you can control, and we'll see the role of this button in a little bit. In the notebook, each of this, you look at the blue bar to the left, is considered, so any of the blue bar, you can use the arrow to move up and down the blue bar. Each of this blue bar is called a cell, and a cell can be executed by clicking on the play button here. So in this case, this cell contains Python code. Any line with the pound sign is a command, meaning that it will not be interpreted by Python. Everything else are Python command. So if I run this, I click play. The first command, as we have learned, assigns the value 2 to variable x. And the second command basically just prints out call on variable x. And we have x has 2, so the value of 2 is returned. So we run that. Anytime you run a cell, you will notice that this number is increment. It meaning it shows you the order of the cell and how many commands have you run so far. I can also execute a shell by pressing Shift Enter combinations. So if I hit Shift Enter, this is executed. This is the third time that I have executed a cell, so I have 2 plus 2 equal to 4. I can also execute a shell by pressing Control Enter. So the difference between Shift Enter and Control Enter is Shift Enter execute a cell and then move the focus to the next cell. Control Enter execute a cell and stay right there. And then somehow you have the blue bar that seems to contain text, and then you have the blue bar that you can type in. So this is where you notice the top. If I click on the blue bar that looks like text, look at the top. This is called a markdown cell, meaning that you can type things in here. Let me double click on this. Now I can type the test, and when I run this cell, it shows me just the text. And if you search for markdown language, you will see there are ways to type in markdown language to design a nice document. And then if I click on this, or if I click on one of the cells that I executed earlier, you see that this is a code cell, meaning that this cell support running execution of Python's code. So the first challenge that you will have to complete on your own is to provide your name in this markdown cell and then execute it. For example, if I put my name in here and I execute it, the outcome will look like that. So I would be expecting your PDF submission to have your name in this cell as the completion of the first challenge. So the next part is the data types concept, the concept of data types. We have learned about variable is the name label of a value. So let me quickly go through that again. I have 60 and I execute this cell. So I have 60. And then I can take 60 and I assign the value of 60 to variable weight in kilogram. This time when I execute the cell, you can notice that there is no output to be printed to screen because we are not outputting anything. We are simply assigning 60 to a variable. Only when we invoke that variable, then we record the value associated with that variable. Look at cell 8. Usually, to display things to the screen, we don't simply type the value, but we would use print. As you will learn later on, we are able to format how we print things out to the screen. So if I do this, it will also print out. Look at cell 9. Using a variable, you are able to do certain thing and you are able to calculate. So for example, in my first print, I print weight in kilogram and I put weight in kilogram here. In my second print command, I put weight in pound, comma, 2.2 times weight in kilogram. So I convert weight in kilogram into weight in pound. Run that. And then you have the two print statement underneath on cell 10. In the next cell, you can try to do this. Change this statement right here, and instead you weight in pound. So now I create a new variable called weight underscore LBS, and I set it to be 2.2 multiplied by weight underscore kilogram. So when I run this cell, I will have the value 132.0. So there are different data types. As we mentioned earlier, the character-based text number and the value number are not the same. First is not equivalent to 1, for example. So there are three basic types in Python that are more relevant. First you have text, then you have integer, and then you have floating number. So I can run that. Using this cell, you can recall and check the value of the variable, and you can also check using the previous mentioned type. You will know what type it is. So text is a string, meaning string of character. Number 42 is an integer, and 6.02 is a float. So you can use the print function to print out the value, as we mentioned earlier. So print and type are built-in functions in Python. On the next part, we have operations. They are basic mathematical calculation in Python using basic operation: plus, minus, divide, multiply, and modulo. So 2 plus 2 equals 4, 6 times 7 equals 42, 2 to the power of 16 is 65,536, and 13 mod 5 is 3. You can also use the logical operator less than, greater than. So a single equal sign is an assignment, but the double equal signs denoting a comparison. So this means two values are the same. Exclamation point equal sign meaning they are not the same. Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and then things like and or not. So is 3 greater than 4? This is false. If both things are true, it is true. If it's true or false, it is true. True and false, it is false. And then false is false. And again, we probably will not touch on this concept just yet. It is more important when we look at condition. So loop, we go back to the idea of loop, enabling the shortening of a sequence of repeated instructions whose variable change according to the certain pattern. So we have that Zybook example. And now x equal to 1, print x, give me 1. X equal x plus 1, print x, that give me 2. And then I repeated it 3 more times. You can see it gives me 3, 4, and 5. That means I have to type a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines. At the same time, for this segment of code, I set x equal to 0. And then in this statement, for I in range 1 through 6, meaning starting from 1 up until and not including 6. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have x equal x plus 1, and then I print x. And this gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically, for the value I in this range, I can go out. It will repeat these operations based on how many values you have within this range. So your second challenge is going to produce a segment of code that brings out the sequence 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and 128. And then as we start dealing with loop and sequences, we need to have an idea about lists and tuple. So lists are a common data structure to hold an ordered sequence that can be accessed by an index. So note that Python indexes start with 0 instead of 1. If I have numbers equal to 1, 2, 3, again, this is, what is a good analogy for that? Perhaps this allows you to access value, sequence value. Let's say you have a bunch of boxes lined up. Each box has some content that you know what they are. But how do you address them? You know exactly the content in each box and the order that the boxes are arranged. Then in order to specify and grab a certain box, you would say like the first box from the left, the third box from the left, the fourth box from the left, and so on. So that's the idea for lists, for sequences. In this case, I have a sequence of number 1, 2, and 3 in this order. And I know I want to get the value 1, so I will tell the value at the first index of the numbers sequence. And this gives me 1. Let's say if I want the second value, so at index 1, that's 2. And if I have, that's 3. Oops, that's 2. A for loop can be used to access element in the list on another term. So this is very expressive. Read this statement for in numbers. We know that number is a collection. So when we say basically for an item in number, and because of the for loop, The understanding here is that for the duration, for all of the available items within this sequence, I want to print this out. So if I run this, it gives me 1, 2, and 3. Indentation is very important in Python. In Python, how do we know which set of command is subset of other? You will note that in my code going up, things are indented in a proper fashion. So again, keep this in mind, and as we walk through, I will tell you and I will help instruct you on why this is. To add element to the end of the list, you can use the append method. So we are appending number 4 to the list number. So now if I'm printing it out, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use help to check for all of the available function that you can use for a certain item. A tuple is similar to the list. The only thing that's different is in tuple you cannot append or remove things from a tuple. So once you create a tuple, that's it. So in your remaining challenges, first I want to go through and try out. Basically, you can modify the code here. I'm asking what happens when you execute a list 1 equal to 5. So what is a list 1 at the moment? And after this is an assignment. So this means that you are changing, apply the value of 5 to the position 1. So how do you view a list to see that issue happen? And then what happens when you execute a tuple 2 equal to 5? And what the type a underscore tuple tell you about the tuple? For this, you run the command and you see the outcome and you type in. So this is probably not enough. So the way that the challenge is questioned, a list requires some typing. I only give you one cell for the code. What you will need to do is go up and let's see. Look at the plus button, insert the cell below. You can use this to run the execution, the command, and use the second newly inserted. Change it to Markdown and type in your answer here. And same thing for 2 and 3. The next concept is the dictionary. A dictionary is a container that holds pair of objects, keys, and value. For example, translation equal to 1. So this is a little bit unlike list. In list, you rely on a index, numerical index. A dictionary is a more elaborated list in which instead of just the numerical index, you actually have a label. So translations, 1 is 1, the text 2 is 2. So if I call translation 1, this gives me the value of 1. So I call this label and this returns the value of 1 to me. In this setting, this is called a key and this item is called a value. So this is a second example. You can also swap the order. This is a bad example. It doesn't work this way. To add an item to a dictionary, we assign a value to a new key. So this is simpler than list. In list, you have to use an append command. In here, you simply use the square bracket, specify a new key, and assign a new value to it. With the key value model, you can go through and you can access each of this pair within a dictionary and print the value out. So if I run execute cell 44, for key and value in ref item, this is my ref item 112233. So for each pair, meaning each of this item separated by a comma is a pair of key 1 and value the string 1, key numeric 2 value the string 2, key numeric 3 value string 3. I can print it out in this format. I can also just look at the key only, but I print out the value by using the dictionary name and I access the key. It also gave me the same results. So in this challenge, I want you to bring the value of the dictionary to the screen, recalling, for example, if you want both key and value, you select key value. In this your for. So if you want key, you type key. So if you want only value, you just need value here, and then you simply print out the value. So you want to change the value of the key 2 so that it reads applesauce. So you would be using something similar to this. The question is, what is the key that you need? And then this is simply to print ref to the screen again to confirm that this has been changed. So I have a section on function here. Kind of take a look at this, but we will not really worry about this until later on. And with that, go ahead and get started and go through this notebook. We still have until Wednesday, so I'll spend some time on Monday and Tuesday just going over this again with you if you have any questions.